So the Atlanta North Mission does not actually cover the city of Atlanta because the Atlanta Mission covers that. So we say like this is the city of Atlanta. The Atlanta North Mission actually just like wraps around the outside of it and then goes kind of south, and that's the Atlanta North Mission. So when I was serving in the mission, there were 6 stakes. I think now there's only 5 stakes in the mission, and the stakes ranged from being right up next to Atlanta, so it was really urban and very city-like, and the Atlanta traffic was very much present. And but then as you moved away from Atlanta, we would move into really rural areas that there wasn't that much. There wasn't houses. And missionaries would have to travel far distances to get to the members' houses and stuff. In the South, there was all kinds of churches. So in Utah, there's lots of chapels, but in the South, there's lots of chapels, but they're all different from different churches. Baptists, non-denominational churches. There's everything. There was Catholic, Christians, evangelical Christians. If there was a church it was in Georgia, and I've talked to people from all different kinds of churches, mainly Baptists. That's one of the bigger ones that I ran into. And being Spanish speaking, we definitely talked to more Catholics because the majority of Hispanics are born Catholic. That's just their culture. But even in the Hispanic population, there was also a wide berth of different kinds of religions that they belong to. I also really loved Georgia because it was really easy to talk to people about Christ because almost everyone in Georgia has faith in Christ. You can walk up to anyone and they knew that you were a representative of Jesus Christ just because it was the South and they knew that missionaries were there. You can have really great conversations with people, and it really helped me appreciate the good in other religions in the world, helping me realize that they also have truth. And that they also can help bring people to Christ. In the restored gospel, we have all the truth and everything that Christ wants us to do. But even in other religions, there's still lots of good. And so it was really cool to see what good other religions had to offer people and how it changed their life, and then add on to their faith in Christ through the restored gospel. You get the question about polygamy a lot. A lot of people understood that if there was that misconceptions were actually misconceptions. Like a lot of people were like, "Oh, I've heard this, but I know that's not true because that doesn't make any sense." So most people were smart about rumors and things about the church, which I really appreciated. But yeah, I didn't really run into too many huge misconceptions about the church, or missionaries. I heard through other missionaries or through members that some churches were kind of anti-Mormon churches, but I didn't really run into anyone from those churches, so that was a blessing. A big thing that we ran into in talking with people in general and with our investigators was a lot of people didn't understand if they had faith in Christ, what we were offering them, what more we had to offer. And that ultimately comes down to them having a desire to read the Book of Mormon and pray to know that it's true. And once they knew that, then they realized that, hey, I actually need what you're offering me. Yeah, as far as commandments that people struggle with in general, one of the biggest ones was keeping the Sabbath day holy, because especially in the Hispanic culture, a lot of them believe in Christ, and they're already really humble people, and they have this faith. They just don't go to church. And so getting them to come to church sometimes was a struggle, and helping them understand the importance of going to church, not just believing. And also when being Spanish speaking, a lot of Hispanic people aren't married, just because in Mexico, where most of them are from, it's difficult and expensive, and they didn't have money, and if they had been married previously, it was difficult to divorce and then marry again, and so that was a struggle a couple of times with investigators that we were teaching. Depending on who we taught, they had difficulties with the whole range of commandments that were out there, from the word of wisdom to the law of tithing to the law of chastity. We ran into everything. So, but I would say the biggest were the Sabbath day and being married. So I started in the Roswell stake in the Camorra Spanish branch, and and then I moved within the Roswell stake to the city of Norcross, to the Norcross Spanish branch. After that, I moved. I was in the Roswell stake for about 6 months. Then I moved to the Sugar Hill stake, and I served in the Buford Spanish branch. And I was in part of that branch was in the city of Buford. I don't remember the name of the other city. And I was there also for about 6 months. Then I moved down to the Conyers stake, and I was in the Yellow River Spanish branch there. For just 2 transfers, and then I finished up in the Marietta stake. I do not remember the name of the branch, but Marietta was one of the cities, and that stake was actually really big. We had a less active member that lived 70 miles north of where like the branch was, so he didn't come to church because it was so far away. But I remember we visited him a couple times, and that was like our entire day because we drove for like an hour to get to him, and then did service and had a lesson, and then drove an hour back. That was a fun experience. The Atlanta North Mission is all within the state of Georgia. The Marietta State goes up to the border, but that was the closest I got to the border.